The sensors on Earth's orbital outpost screamed in unison, but the readings made no sense. At the very edge of human-controlled space, a wall of darkness had appeared, stretching farther than the eye or any telescope could see. It wasn't just ships. It was a flotilla of jagged alien titans, hulking black behemoths glinting faintly under distant starlight. Each vessel seemed alive, pulsing with an eerie bioluminescence, shadows crawling across their surfaces as though the ships themselves breathed. In the command room of Earth's Central Fleet Station, Admiral Renko slammed his fist on the console. "What the hell is that?" he barked, voice tight with tension. Screens flickered, displaying multiple angles. Long, spindly tendrils of hulls, turrets bristling like the teeth of some galactic predator. Communications were scrambled, waves of alien energy jamming every human signal. Panic raced through the officers. "It's a fleet," muttered Lieutenant Voss, her voice barely audible. "A fleet larger than any we've ever seen. No, 100 fleets combined. There's no origin signature. They just appeared." The silence that followed was heavier than the vacuum outside. The human colonies along the frontier held their breath. Messages pinged in one by one. Fear, confusion, pleas for guidance, but no orders had yet been given. Then the alien transmission cut through. A single cold message: surrender or be obliterated. It was brief, void of negotiation or warning. The voice, or whatever it was mechanical, alien, unyielding. The enormity of it hit the room like a tidal wave. Obliteration. Entire colonies would be vaporized if humans resisted. Admiral Renko's jaw clenched. "All fleets to battle stations, prepare for immediate engagement, deploy every ship." His hand hovered over the intercom, hesitating. The words sounded hollow even as he spoke them. "We are outnumbered, outgunned, outclassed, outside, orbiting." Satellites captured images of the fleet slowly advancing toward the solar system, light from distant stars reflected off their armor, glinting like shards of obsidian. Ships moved with eerie precision, formations shifting as if connected by a single collective mind. There was no hesitation, no error. They were the perfect predators, and humanity was prey. Meanwhile, in the briefing room, a young pilot named Jackson Reeve leaned back in his chair, calm amidst chaos. He was a maverick, infamous for taking impossible missions and surviving where others didn't. He stared at the alien formations on the holographic display, his mind already calculating trajectories, weaknesses, escape routes, possibilities. "They think fear will win," he murmured. Lieutenant Voss glanced at him, frowning. "You think we can fight them?" she asked, almost hoping for reassurance. Reeve shook his head slightly, a shadow of a smirk crossing his face. "Not fight. Not yet. I'm thinking we need to make them hesitate. One wrong move, one human spark, and even a fleet this size can falter." His words were bold, almost reckless, but there was a strange calmness in his eyes that unsettled everyone watching. He tapped a finger on the holographic fleet map, plotting a course into the outermost edges of their formation. "I'm going in, alone." The room froze. Alone. Renko's voice cracked. "You're suicidal." "Maybe," Reeve said, standing, shoulders squared. "Or maybe I'm just going to remind them that humans don't surrender. Not today. Not ever." Outside, the alien fleet's hulls shimmered under the distant sun, casting shadows across moons and planets alike. Humanity had never faced a force like this. The odds were impossibly stacked against them. Yet somewhere in the vast void, a single human heart thumped with unyielding resolve. One fighter, one spark, one defiant soul willing to stare into the jaws of annihilation and not blink. And in that instant, the story of fear and courage began. The void outside Reeve's cockpit stretched infinitely, a black canvas spattered with distant stars. He sat alone in his fighter, engines humming with restrained power, a speck of humanity against a wall of alien death. The fleet ahead wasn't just enormous, it was suffocating. Ships larger than cities drifted in precise formation, their energy cores pulsing like alien hearts. The slightest misstep meant vaporization. Systems check complete, Reeve muttered into the comms, though. He knew no one could hear him. The fleet's jamming signals blocked all transmissions beyond a whisper. His HUD flickered with overlays, mapping trajectories, shield ranges, and potential blind spots in the alien formation. Each line, each flicker, was a lifeline in a game where failure equaled extinction. Behind him, Earth's command watched anxiously. Admiral Renko leaned over the console, heart hammering. "He's actually going through with it," muttered Lieutenant Voss. Around her, other officers stared at the live feed, lines of tension etched deep across their faces. Every human eye was glued to a single point, the fighter streaking toward impossible odds. Reeve's fingers danced over the controls. He didn't just fly. He weaved, carving paths through the vast black like a predator stalking its prey. Alien drones swarmed ahead, plasma streaks lancing through space, narrowly missing his hull. Each shot illuminated the void in brief, violent bursts, reflecting off his visor like molten fire. Yet Reeve pressed on. Hesitation would be death. Speed and unpredictability were his only allies. He accessed the alien comm channels. Encrypted, alien, indecipherable to most. But Reeve had studied their signals for months, patterns and frequencies, rhythms, even what he called their breathing cycles. With a few deft keystrokes, he bypassed their security, transmitting a message that was tiny in size but monumental in impact. "You picked the wrong species." For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the fleet shifted. Minor adjustments in formation, barely perceptible, but enough to hint at doubt. For the first time, the aliens hesitated. Inside the command bridge of the flagship, bioluminescent alien officers blinked nervously. Data streams flooded their displays, something anomalous, unaccounted for. One officer clicked through records, scanning centuries of human history, battles, survival, and inexplicable resilience. The logic that had guided their empire for millennia faltered. A single human pilot had pierced it. Back in the fighter, Reeve didn't pause. He knew fear was as contagious as it was invisible. Each small error the aliens made widened the cracks in their confidence. He executed a sharp barrel roll, dodging an energy net that would have trapped him like an insect in amber. The HUD blared, warning of critical proximity, but instinct and training guided his hand. He veered closer to the central cluster of ships, the giant's shadows now looming like mountains over a valley of stars. The soundless void was pierced only by the low hum of his engines and the crackle of alien energy fields. Reeve's pulse raced, not with fear, but exhilaration. Every maneuver, every calculated risk, was a step toward turning the impossible into possibility. Then, a sudden shift. A hunter drone detached from the nearest cruiser, a sleek spear of metal and energy accelerating toward him. It moved faster than anything Reeve had seen, weaving unpredictably, locking its targeting systems on his hull. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and it would tear him apart. Reeve smirked, pressing a sequence that activated a decoy flare. The drone followed the false signal, ricocheting off the asteroid fragments he had memorized from scans, careening harmlessly into the void. The alien fleet's formation wavered again, this time more visibly. Doubt rippled outward from the flagship to every corner of the armada. A voice in Reeve's helmet, a recording of Admiral Renko, tinged with both fear and admiration, echoed, faintly. "If anyone can make them hesitate, it's you." And that was exactly what he intended. Hesitation. Even a moment of uncertainty in a fleet meant the difference between destruction and survival. Humanity's first act of defiance had begun, and for the aliens the realization would be terrifying. They weren't facing a fleet. They were facing one human. Outside, the void waited, silent and infinite. But in that darkness, one human heart burned bright. One spark, defiant, unstoppable, and unforgettable. Jackson Reeve's fighter cut through the void like a streak of silver fire, dwarfed by the alien fleet that stretched endlessly ahead. Every instinct screamed, "Retreat." Every human reflex warned, "You're outmatched." And yet, he pressed forward, threading the needle between colossal warships with the precision of a predator stalking prey. Ahead, the central formation of the alien armada glimmered with an unnatural glow, the energy cores of the ships pulsing in perfect synchronization. Reeves' HUD lit up with warnings, shields of the nearest cruisers at full strength, drones swarming in hexagonal grids, laser turrets sweeping methodically. The sheer scale was dizzying. Each step forward was a gamble against annihilation. He took a deep breath, letting the silence of space sharpen his focus. "They've never seen someone like me," he murmured, eyes scanning the alien patterns. "And that's their first mistake." Reeves' strategy was simple, if audacious. Infiltrate their inner formation and disrupt the flow of command. One human, a single fighter, could not destroy the fleet. But one human could force hesitation. One human could sow doubt, and doubt, in a machine-perfect armada, was a weapon sharper than any laser. A sudden flare lit the void. An energy net snapped across his path, stretching taut like a spiderweb between two cruiser hulls. He veered hard, thrusters screaming as his fighter skidded inches past the barrier. The metallic tang of energy flooded his senses through the cockpit sensors, and for a moment, the fleet's immense size pressed down on him like a physical weight. Then came the drones. Hundreds of them, sleek and silver, darting like predatory fish. Reeves' fingers danced over the controls, deploying flares, decoys, and micromaneuvers in a ballet of death. Every shot missed by millimeters, every evasive twist saving him from vaporization. He could feel the alien fleet recalibrating, their rhythm faltering for the first time. He tapped into the alien communication channels again, sending a single message. "You can't predict me. You won't stop me." The ripple was immediate. Screens aboard the alien flagship flickered, displays shifting frantically as algorithms failed to account for unpredictability. The officers, bioluminescent and alien, blinked in confusion. Their logic, built over millennia, struggled to comprehend a being so small, so fragile, yet so uncontainable. Reeves' fighter dove between two massive cruisers, weaving through shadow and energy, weaving between their pulsating cores like a ghost. His engines left streaks of blue fire that licked the edges of nearby asteroids, illuminating the void in sudden bursts. Every maneuver was a message. Humans do not bow. Humans do not fear. A massive turret swung toward him, energy charging with a thunderous hum. Reeve tilted sharply, letting the blast skim past his wingtip. The shockwave rattled his cockpit, throwing instruments into chaos, but he kept control. Adrenaline surged, sharpening every sense. The void outside was a theater of destruction. Flashes of green and violet, explosions blooming like alien flowers, debris spinning in slow, mesmerizing arcs. He pushed forward, closer to the flagship. The enormity of it was overwhelming. Towers of bioluminescent metal, pulsing cores, endless arrays of turrets. Yet Reeves' presence alone was forcing cracks in their perfect formation. One small, unpredictable variable, a human, was enough to turn order into hesitation. Then he executed the move that would become legendary. Using a combination of speed, trajectory, and a decoy flare, he bypassed the outer defenses entirely and sent a disruption pulse into the flagship's comm system. Screens flickered, turrets misaligned, drones collided with one another. For the first time, the fleet froze, an entire armada paralyzed by uncertainty. Reeves' HUD flashed. "They're doubting. They're questioning. That's all I need." In that silence, amid the chaos he had orchestrated, he realized the truth. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was acting despite it. And right now, the fear of a single human was rippling outward through the alien fleet like a shockwave, a lesson they would not forget. As Reeve veered away from the flagship, the void stretched endlessly ahead. The fleet was vast, but hesitation was contagious. And in the black, infinite nothingness, one human spark burned brighter than all their lights combined. The lesson was beginning. The galaxy would soon learn. Never underestimate a human. Inside the flagship's command chamber, a storm of panic erupted. The alien officers, their bioluminescent eyes flickering with confusion, barked orders that went unanswered. Drones collided mid-flight. Turrets misfired. Shields fluctuated erratically. Every system hummed with the discord of uncertainty. One human, one tiny, defiant human, had infiltrated the heart of their perfect formation and fractured it. "Explain this anomaly," hissed the flagship's lead officer, a creature whose very bones seemed to hum with energy. "All protocols fail. Our algorithms. They cannot predict him." Another officer's tendrils twitched nervously. "He is insignificant. Yet he disrupts everything. How?" The lead officer's gaze sharpened. "He is human. That explains nothing. We must adapt, or annihilation will follow." Back in the void, Jackson Reeves streaked past the flagship like a silver arrow. Each movement was precise yet unpredictable, a deadly dance that drew the fleet's attention outward and away from their own cohesion. Sensors lit up in his HUD. Minor damage here, a misaligned turret there, drones spinning out of control. The tiniest errors, the smallest hesitation, they were multiplying exponentially. He slowed slightly, letting the flagship's sensors lock onto him. Then, with deliberate patience, he executed a sudden dive, threading between two cruisers with mere meters of clearance. His fighter's hull scraped against a sliver of asteroid debris, leaving a streak of fire that shimmered against the darkness. The fleet reacted instinctively, energy beams snapping toward him, but every shot missed, every move too slow against human ingenuity. On Earth, Admiral Renko watched the feed in tense silence. "He's actually holding them off," he muttered. "One man, against an entire armada." Lieutenant Voss leaned closer, her face pale but awestruck. "He's making them doubt themselves, fear him." And that was exactly what Reeve intended. Fear, subtle but absolute, could destabilize a machine-perfect fleet far faster than weapons ever could. He had become the unpredictable variable, the ghost that haunted every sensor, every calculation, every officer in the alien command chain. As he maneuvered closer, he deployed micro-disruptors, tiny, almost invisible devices that latched onto the hulls of nearby cruisers, feeding false data into their systems. Turrets swiveled wildly, drones collided, energy shields oscillated unpredictably. It was chaos measured with precision, a storm of uncertainty in the heart of order. The flagship's lead officer roared in frustration, tendrils lashing across the control panel. "Seal the perimeter. Do not let him reach the central nexus." But the nexus was already compromised. Reeves' disruption pulses had infected the flagship's systems, and tiny errors began cascading through the fleet like dominoes. For the first time in recorded history, the alien armada wavered, not from force but from the specter of one human's audacity. Reeves' HUD pinged, drones approaching from the opposite flank. He twisted the fighter in a corkscrew maneuver, weaving between streams of energy and metal. The flares and decoys he deployed created phantom targets, drawing the swarm into collisions. Explosions erupted silently in the void, brief blooms of light that reflected off distant asteroids like dying stars. Then came the realization. They were not just miscalculating, they were afraid. Fear had infiltrated their systems, their command protocols, even their instincts. One human, tiny and fragile, had ignited a doubt that threatened to unravel centuries of meticulous control. A small smirk curved Reeves' lips. "That's all I need," he murmured. "Just a crack. One tiny crack." He banked sharply, evading a massive turret blast that would have obliterated his fighter, and sent another pulse into the flagship's communications network. The alien officers froze, tendrils twitching in sheer panic. Systems failed, formation faltered, and a ripple of chaos spread outward. And in that moment, the truth became undeniable. Humanity's strength wasn't in numbers, shields, or weapons. It was in unpredictability, courage, and defiance. The aliens had learned the first lesson too late. Fear could be contagious. Reeves' fighter streaked away from the flagship, leaving behind a trail of confusion, disarray, and shattered confidence. The Armada's formation wavered, no longer perfect, no longer terrifyingly absolute. One human had done what entire fleets of other species had failed to do. And as the stars stretched endlessly around him, Reeve realized something vital. The galaxy would remember this day, not for destruction or conquest, but for fear. Fear of one human. Jackson Reeve hovered at the edge of the chaos he had sown, eyes scanning the fractured alien formation ahead. What had once been a flawless predatory armada now staggered like a wounded beast. The flagship's systems flickered with confusion. Smaller cruisers collided or swerved wildly, and drones moved in erratic, self-destructive patterns. Reeve's pulse surged, not with fear, but with exhilaration. The fleet's momentary hesitation was his opening. One human, yes, but a human who thrived on unpredictability. Every maneuver, every pulse, every micro-disruption was a carefully orchestrated strike. He wasn't just surviving, he was teaching the aliens a lesson they would never forget. Ahead, the flagship's massive energy cores pulsed rhythmically, like the heart of a sleeping giant. Reeve banked sharply, veering behind an asteroid cluster for cover. The void around him erupted in flashes of alien fire as the outer cruisers tried to regain control. Their weapon systems were accurate, but their timing was off. Fear had made them sloppy. He targeted a relay node on one of the central cruisers, a single exposed junction feeding the entire fleet's navigation and coordination. Micro-disruptors clung to the hull like silent predators, emitting pulses that interfered with the cruiser's sensors. The lights on its hull stuttered, turrets misfired, and drones spun out of control. A ripple ran through the fleet as other ships tried to compensate, creating a chain reaction of minor collisions and misalignments. Reeve's HUD flashed, damage minimal, opportunity maximal. A sudden warning ping startled him. Another hunter. Drone accelerating straight for his cockpit. Its surface shimmered with adaptive shielding, and it moved with lethal precision. Reeve's fingers danced over the controls, sending a cascade of flares and decoys outward. The drone twisted violently, chasing shadows while Reeve spiraled upward, narrowly avoiding a blast that would have shredded his hull. Then came the boldest part of his plan, a direct strike at the flagship's sensor array. Every human instinct screamed suicidal, but hesitation wasn't an option. Reeve dove through the void, twisting past a labyrinth of turrets and energy beams. The flagship loomed larger with each second, immense and imposing. Yet every miscalculated shot, every slight delay, every hesitant movement from the alien officers carved a path for him. He released the micro-disruptors. They latched onto the sensor array, pulsing with a frequency the flagship couldn't filter. Lights flickered across the hull, turrets misaligned, communication channels jammed. The flagship's officers erupted in chaos, tendrils lashing wildly. Over the controls, trying desperately to regain order. And then, the unthinkable happened. The flagship's energy cores stuttered, just a fraction, imperceptible to most species but catastrophic in a fleet that relied on perfect synchronization. Shield fluctuations radiated outward. Drones collided. Minor cruisers veered off course. One human, with no fleet of his own, had created pandemonium in a force that dwarfed entire solar systems. Reeve's chest tightened, not with fear, but with the raw thrill of defiance. Humanity didn't need overwhelming firepower to survive. It needed audacity, courage, the ability to act when all odds were stacked against you. And right now, one human's courage was rewriting the rules of an entire alien armada. On Earth, Admiral Renko's face was pale but focused. "He's doing it," she whispered. "He's actually doing it." Reeve twisted his fighter, narrowly dodging a misfired energy beam from a cruiser attempting to correct its course. The void exploded in bursts of light and fragments of metal. For a heartbeat, he felt the scale of what he was attempting, the odds, the sheer impossibility. Then he remembered the lesson he had learned in training. Fear was contagious, but so was confidence. One human could tip the balance. One human could force giants to stumble. He banked sharply, leaving behind a trail of disruption, chaos, and doubt. Every ship in the armada was now second-guessing its decisions, every officer questioning orders, every algorithm struggling to compensate for unpredictability. Reeve had become more than a fighter pilot. He was a phantom, a force of nature, a symbol of humanity's indomitable will. And as he raced deeper into the shattered fleet, a realization settled over him. The first strike wasn't just about destruction. It was about demonstrating that humans would not bow, would not yield, and would never be predictable. The galaxy was about to learn a hard truth. Fear could be taught, and one human was about to become its master. Jackson Reeve's fighter darted through the void like a silver shadow, threading between massive cruisers and pulsing energy beams. The alien fleet, once a flawless engine of destruction, now staggered under the weight of hesitation. One human had become an unpredictable storm, forcing errors, collisions, and miscalculations across hundreds of ships. Ahead loomed the flagship, colossal and radiant, its pulsing energy cores casting eerie light on the shattered formation around it. Reeve's HUD flickered with alerts, drones swarming in erratic patterns, turrets firing at nothing, shields fluctuating uncontrollably. It was chaos, the kind that could only be born from fear, and fear, he realized, was a weapon more potent than any missile. He banked sharply behind a drifting asteroid, narrowly avoiding a blast that tore through the void where his fighter had been a heartbeat earlier. The debris field around him shimmered in violet and green energy from misfiring alien weaponry. Every flash, every fragment, every flicker of light screamed a warning. This was no longer a battle of strength. It was a psychological war. Reeve's pulse steadied. He wasn't here to destroy them. Yet, he was here to demonstrate something infinitely more dangerous: uncertainty. A fleet that feared what it could not predict was already losing. And he was the spark. Using the confusion to his advantage, Reeve's fighter shot a disruption pulse at one of the central cruiser's core junctions. Sensors overloaded, and turrets swung wildly, firing into empty space. Drones collided mid-flight, leaving trails of smoke and sparks drifting across the void like fireflies in a storm. The flagship's officers barked orders in rapid sequences, but every command contradicted the last. The Armada's precision, its legendary coordination, had crumbled. Reeve tilted his cockpit, eyes locked on the flagship's weak points. He could see the massive sensor array, glowing faintly under the alien energy shields, pulsing like a heart under stress. A perfect target, but one misstep, one hesitation, and he would be obliterated in an instant. He pushed forward, weaving between a storm of energy beams. The fleet reacted instinctively, but with every hesitation, every miscalculated correction, Reeve grew bolder. He deployed micro-disruptors again, clinging to the flagship's hull like invisible predators. Systems faltered, turrets misaligned, drones collided, and in the center of it all, the flagship's energy cores shimmered unevenly for the first time in millennia. The alien lead officer's tendrils snapped violently across the control panels. Stop him! Stop him now! The entire command chain was in uproar. Calculations that would have guided the fleet flawlessly moments ago now churned with error and doubt. For the first time, fear had infiltrated their logic. Reeve's HUD flashed warnings of incoming drones, but he didn't flinch. A sudden corkscrew maneuver sent him spiraling past a massive cruiser, dodging beams that would have vaporized lesser pilots. Each movement was calculated chaos, a human moving unpredictably through a mechanized world built to anticipate perfection. Then, the first real opportunity appeared. A vulnerable junction on the flagship's dorsal array, exposed by a misalignment of its shields. Reeve aimed, hesitated a fraction of a second, just enough to let anticipation build in his chest, and fired a pulse that rattled the ship's entire systems. The array sparked violently, cascading failures through the flagships, sensors and communications. The fleet convulsed in reaction. Minor cruisers collided, drones malfunctioned, and even the outer perimeter hesitated in unison. In the void, the effect was mesmerizing. Explosions and flashes of misfired energy painted the surrounding darkness, reflecting off debris in a chaotic light show. Reeve's fighter moved through it all like a phantom, leaving trails of disruption and doubt in his wake. Every flash, every burst of energy reinforced the lesson he was teaching. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were fearless in the face of impossible odds. Humans could be the single variable that unmade giants. He exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing. The flagship's officers were panicked, struggling to restore order. Their perfect synchronization had shattered. Hesitation had crept into their calculations, and the ripple of fear would only spread further, throughout the fleet, through every commander, through every drone and turret that depended on certainty. One human had reached the heart of the Armada and had survived. One human had turned a disciplined, infinite machine of war into a fractured, chaotic system driven by doubt. And as Reeve banked sharply away from the flagship, he realized the truth that would define this battle. The galaxy didn't fear humans for their numbers or their weapons. It feared their audacity, their defiance, their unbreakable will, and the lesson was only beginning. Jackson Reeve didn't pause. He spiraled through the wreckage of the alien fleet, a single human weaving chaos through an armada that had once dwarfed entire worlds. Every flash of light, every collision of ships, every misfired beam was a heartbeat. In the symphony of fear he was orchestrating. Ahead, the flagship shuddered. Its dorsal array sputtered, energy flickering like a dying star. Smaller cruisers, now untethered from coordinated control, slammed into one another, leaving trails of debris streaking through the void. Reeve's HUD tracked hundreds of variables, in real time, each representing an enemy calculation collapsing under doubt. He was no longer fighting a fleet. He was unraveling a universe of certainty, one pulse at a time. A new wave of drones surged toward him. Sleek, metallic, and predatory, they moved with mechanical precision. Or at least they had until Reeve's disruptions warped their sensors. They collided mid-flight, spinning into one another, their wreckage creating a jagged path he could exploit. Reeve barrel rolled through the chaos, unleashing micro-disruptors that clung to their hulls, detonating in pulses that rippled across the swarm. Sparks and shards lit the darkness, a staccato fireworks display of engineered panic. Then came the moment of pure audacity, the flagship's main energy conduit. The massive structure pulsated like a living heart, powering the ship and synchronizing the entire fleet. Reeve knew one precise strike could cripple not only the flagship, but also the coordination of the entire armada. Hesitation could mean death. But he had learned long ago that fear was only fatal if you let it rule you. He plunged toward the heart of the beast, dodging cascading beams from turrets now misaligned and firing at shadows. The flagship trembled under the strain of malfunctioning shields and erratic energy flows. Reeve's eyes scanned the array of weak points. Every misfire, every flicker of instability was a doorway. One human, in a fighter built for unpredictability, could become a phantom no fleet could anticipate. As he approached the conduit, the flagship's officers erupted in chaos. Tentacles of glowing energy snapped across their control panels, systems warning alarms blaring in a cacophony of panic. Every command contradicted the last, every order delayed by fear, every calculation failing. Reeve could almost hear their uncertainty in the rhythm of the failing energy cores. He fired. The pulse tore through the conduit, sending shockwaves rippling outward. The flagship lurched violently, shields flickering and drones spinning out of control. Minor cruisers collided with one another in a symphony of destruction, beams misfiring into empty void. Sparks drifted like fireflies in the vacuum, illuminating twisted metal and fractured hulls. The Armada's precision, the thing that had made it unstoppable, was gone. Reeve banked sharply, letting the shockwave carry him past the flagship, feeling the full weight of what he had accomplished. One human, a single, unpredictable entity, had penetrated the heart of a galaxy-spanning armada and left it reeling. Every ship in the fleet was now reacting to fear rather than strategy. The human's defiance had become a virus, infecting the minds of Titans. From Earth, Admiral Renko watched the live feed, tension etched into her face. "He's teaching them a lesson they'll never forget," she whispered. "One human, one will alone." Reeve's pulse surged. He wasn't done. Fear was a tool, and he was sharpening it. Each collision, each misfire, Each hesitation compounded. The flagship's crew scrambled to stabilize systems, but their panic fed itself, growing faster than any repair effort could counter. One mistake had become 2, then 4, then 10. The ripple of terror spread through the armada like wildfire, and yet in the chaos, Reeves' mind was clear. This wasn't just destruction, it was strategy. It was the ultimate demonstration. Humans didn't rely on overwhelming force. They relied on cunning, audacity, and the unshakable ability to confront impossibility without flinching. The void around him was alive with light and debris, a visual testament to the lesson he was imparting. Certainty was fragile, even for the mightiest of civilizations. And one human, one fearless, unpredictable human, could fracture the very foundations of the galaxy's most formidable war machine. Reeve banked again, eyeing the flagship's broken hull. The finale was close. One precise move could shatter its coordination entirely, leaving the armada fractured, leaderless, and most importantly, terrified. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just survive. Humans taught fear itself. Jackson Reeve hovered at the edge of the flagship's core, the colossal alien vessel quivering under the weight of his audacity. Around him, the armada was in disarray, cruisers drifting aimlessly, drones spinning like broken toys, turrets firing blindly into the void. The fleet's once perfect coordination had dissolved into chaos, a testament to the unpredictable force of a single human mind. He scanned the flagship, eyes narrowing on its main reactor array. One precise disruption, one calculated strike, and the core would collapse, not just damaging the flagship but sending shockwaves through the entire armada. Every alien commander knew the rules of warfare: strength, numbers, and precision. Reeve had rewritten them all. A pulse of green energy streaked past his cockpit, grazing the hull. Alien fire still lingered, desperate, reactive. But it was no longer coordinated. Reeve banked sharply, weaving through the chaos like a ghost. Sparks and debris trailed him, casting surreal shadows across the wreckage-strewn void. He was the storm, and the fleet was its prey. He activated the micro-disruptors one final time. They latched onto the flagship's energy conduits, detonating in synchronized pulses that made the ship convulse violently. The hull twisted, shields flaring in erratic bursts. A cascade of sparks exploded along its surface, illuminating alien officers scrambling in panic, tentacles snapping wildly across control panels. Fear had rooted itself in their minds. Reeves' HUD highlighted the final weak points in the reactor array. This was the moment of truth, the culmination of every maneuver, every risky dodge, every calculated gamble. One strike could send a ripple through the armada so severe that the aliens would remember it for generations. He fired. The pulse hit the reactor with surgical precision. A violent shockwave rippled through the flagship, the energy array convulsing and sputtering. Shields collapsed in sections, and turrets misfired catastrophically. The vessel shuddered violently, sending smaller ships careening into one another. Sparks and twisted metal spiraled across the void like a deadly ballet, illuminated by bursts of green and violet energy. And then came silence. The armada froze. Every drone, every cruiser, every officer paused in perfect synchrony, not out of obedience but out of fear. The flagship, once an unstoppable titan, hung in the void like a wounded leviathan, its systems failing and its crew paralyzed by the unpredictable audacity of one human. Jackson Reeve banked away, giving the flagship space to collapse without harming himself. He wasn't here to destroy. They had already learned the lesson that would echo across galaxies. Humans were not bound by expectation, protocol, or fear. They were unpredictable, unyielding, and terrifying when cornered. From the flagship, the lead officer's tendrils quivered across the control panels. Calculations that once dictated the armada's perfection now failed utterly. The alien fleet had been shattered without a single fleet-wide engagement. Their power wasn't broken by force. It was broken by doubt, by fear, by the realization that one human could render them impotent. Reeve exhaled slowly. The void around him was littered with debris, flickering lights, and fractured hulls, a testament to the psychological storm he had unleashed. The visual was mesmerizing, a chaotic tapestry of destruction that proved a single human mind could bend even the most advanced civilization to its will. Admiral Renko's voice crackled through the comms. "Jackson, you've done what no fleet could. You've shown them that humans are different." He smiled faintly. "They'll never forget it." As the human fighter retreated, the flagship's remaining officers sent fragmented messages to the scattered armada. Hesitation had replaced command, fear had replaced strategy, and the galaxy, for the first time in millennia, had been taught a lesson it could not unlearn. Humans were not to be underestimated. In the void, Jackson Reeve became more than a pilot. He became a symbol, a warning, a reminder that audacity, courage, and defiance could shatter the strongest of empires, and that sometimes the mightiest weapon in the universe was not firepower, but one unyielding human will. The lesson was clear. Fear could topple titans, and humans were masters of teaching it the galaxy would remember.